Hej och välkomna till Udda Ting, en podcast om sällsamma historier, kreativitet och kreatörerna själva. Mitt namn är Henrik Möller, musiken är skapad av Testbild och loggan till podden är gjord av Malmökonstnären Nalle Chinsky. Det här avsnittet ska handla om ett av de mest legendariska ofilmade science fiction-manusen genom tiderna, Clair Notos The Tourist. Det var ett manus som när det började cirkulera runt i Hollywood tidigt 80-tal var ett sånt där manus som när alla som läste det blev imponerade. Det här var något helt nytt, en idé som ingen tidigare hade kommit på i en tid när science fiction var som allra störst. Jag stötte först på The Tourist i en sina fantastiktidning där H.R. Giger, Aliens skapare, hade ritat produktionsskisser och målat till den. Vid den tidpunkten var det tänkt att Ridley Scott skulle regissera och detta skulle bli han och Gigers stora återförening sedan Alien. Bilderna var fantastiska, men vad handlade denna filmen om som alla var så imponerade av? Manusets skapare var också en person höljd i dunkel, Clair Noto. Nu har jag tyvärr gjort mig av med min bok The Greatest Science Fiction Movies Never Made, men jag tror inte att det stod så mycket om Clairs bakgrund i den. Den klassiska bilden på henne som cirkulerar på nätet är från 1982, där ser hon ut att vara i de tidiga 20-årsåldern, sittandes vid sin skrivmaskin. Det pratas om att hennes första manus var en sorts kvinnlig James Bond-karaktär som hon skrev för producenten Ray Stark. Det blev inget av, men senare kom manuset i händerna på producenten Sean Daniel, mest känd för Dazed and Confused och Mumien-filmerna. Sean Daniel såg talang i Clair, men han såg också att det här var ett beställningsarbete, så därför frågade han Clair vilken historia som hon själv ville berätta. Då berättade Clair om The Tourist, en historia inspirerad av 50-talsfilmen The Day the Earth Stood Still, om en utomjording som vandrar förklädd bland människorna. Clair utvecklade idén på sitt eget originella sätt, inspirerad av Helmut Newtons erotiska fotografier och H.R. Gigers mardrömslika erotiska odjur. Samtidigt hade 70-talets underground Leatherman-klubbar i New York satt sina spår och Clair berättar att hon var skrämd och fascinerad när hon första gången besökte dessa klubbar med läder, S&M, gruppsex och badkar fulla av urin. Det var som att komma till en annan planet, sa hon. Detta skulle bli arenan för hennes moderna science fiction-film. Flera år senare på 90-talet, när grejer började hamna på internet, så var det 2 manus jag var sugen på att läsa. Det ena var David Lynch ofilmade Ronnie Rocket och det andra var Clair Notos The Tourist. Till slut så hittade jag The Tourist-manuset. Och det manuset var daterat med blyerts på framsidan 1981. Filmen handlar om att alla UFO-sighting som vi ser här på jorden inte är besökare utan rymdvarelser som försöker fly härifrån. Jorden är alltså en avfallsplats, ett sorts fängelse dit utomjordingar som begått brott förflyttas. De får leva här på jorden som en sorts straff, förklädda till människor. Sen har de vissa underground-klubbar där de träffas, beklagar sig om sin situation och har sex med varandra och planerar sin flykt härifrån. Huvudpersonen Grace Ripley är en framgångsrik businesskvinna i Manhattan på jakt efter den där personen som mot rätt summa kan hjälpa henne fly härifrån. Manuset är välskrivet och originellt. Det börjar på en avlägsen planet och jag ska läsa öppningsscenen här nu. Exterior beach, alien planet. A sulphurous yellow sea smashes against a black sand beach. The air is dense and hazy. There's a shrill, inhuman howl. A large, worm-like form moves along the beach with great speed. It is being pursued by a group of grotesquely featured creatures of a different species. They pounce on it and capture it. Close-up of the worm's alien face. It howls in agony as it's dragged away. Cut 2. Close-up of a wino, New York City. He's haranguing the lounge crowd as they swarm the sweltering streets. He swoops up a broken shark toy from the gutter and waves it in their faces. The wino says, "Save the porpoise! Save the porpoise! Give me some money or you'll end up in a pine box!" Senare kommer vi att förstå att det är Grace som är den där maskliknande varelsen som har blivit fångad och ivägsläpad. I en scen mot slutet som kan bli precis hur briljant eller hur fånig som helst behåller Grace och hennes fiende sina mänskliga former medan de rör sig som sina utomjordiska kroppar. Grace slingrar sig alltså som en mask runt sin motståndare i slutstrid. Jag frågade Lee McGeorge som har skrivit en fanfiction-roman utifrån Clairs manus av The Tourist. Han är en fan och han har fördjupat sig i det legendariska manusets produktionshistoria.
So the background with the film is there's a number of different versions. It depends on who you're speaking with. Now, the version that Clair will tell you is that it was at Universal and it was under the auspices of a producer who had a really good feel for it, and she would be writing pages, he'd be giving her ideas, she'd be writing some more pages, taking them back. And then he went off to bigger and better things, and other people came in. And a producer came in called Remy Missel. Now, Remy had scored a hit with a TV movie that picked up an Oscar nomination. She didn't really do much else, but she had this, and she was like the cool hot girl on the street, and Clair was this hot young writer. They got together, and if you follow Clair's story, Remy Missel then tried to steal the project and force her out. Remy has a different story that, you know, Clair's kind of very difficult to work with. She doesn't want to compromise, and she made it almost too difficult for people to work with her. But there's a lot of confusion here because who had certain rights or what the contracts were, nobody really knows. It's a mystery. It was a bit of a mess. And how the project collapsed is, as far as I can see, I think Remy Missel probably gives the most plausible reason, is that at the time, Universal Pictures could spend up to, in film production, you could spend up to $1 million on pre-production, and if you pulled the plug, you could then claim that money back as a tax write-off. So it was like you got the money back effectively. And that was this golden cut-off point for making movies. And it was getting closer and closer to that point. They didn't have a script that worked. Lots of people were coming and going. It was just a difficult project. And Universal just said, look, we're not interested. We'll move on to something else. If you listen to Clair's version of the story, tens of millions of dollars were spent. I find that really implausible. I think that Remy has probably the best recollection of what actually happened. So it was simply a case of time went by, they couldn't make it work. They'd spent a lot of money, but they could get that money back from tax, so they decided to take it.
Well, the thing that I heard was that it was too expensive for what it was. It was an artsy, character-driven piece, but with these big science fiction scenes here and there with monsters, alien worlds and Gigeresque machines in this underground club. That meant that it would have a budget usually reserved for big action movies. But if you took away the science fiction elements, you wouldn't really have anything left that was unique about it.
I don't really subscribe to this view that it was, you know, some things were too expensive. It wasn't. I mean, Clair's real desire was always that it would be lo-fi, that it would be kind of cheap and cheerful and just imaginative rather than super expensive. And there's nothing in it that in the screenplay or in the ideas that would make it cost prohibitive.
Well, maybe not today, but in 1981, the era of practical effects, it would be quite expensive.
Not really. If you think about movies that were being made at that time, they went through a phase of very expensive screenplays. If I remember right, the most expensive screenplay at the time was Jacob's Ladder, which was the first movie that had been sold for $5 million. So that was a really big thing. In the 80s, it was who has the best screenplay. So that's why you got movies like Fatal Attraction, why you got movies like Ghost. They were really big. They were the big money screenplays. So when people are spending $5 million on a screenplay, you know, the fact that they could have $1 million for pre-production as a tax write-off, it sounds plausible.
Okay, could you talk about the people that got involved? It was quite a number of different directors that came and went.
So there was a number of directors attached. Brian Gibson, probably the most famous. I think Rodham, who had just directed Quadrophenia, he was attached. Clair has talked to me before about meeting Ridley Scott and Adrian Lyne. So there were big names all swirling about it, but nobody ever really committed. The closest anyone got was probably Brian Gibson, who was the director of Poltergeist 2.
Could you be more specific? Did you say anything what they talked about during their meetings?
Well, Claire says that, she met people like Ridley Scott, and all she ever says is that they loved it, they wanted to do it, but somebody else ruined the project. That's what Claire always says. It's the same story for everybody, for every director, for every producer, for every other screenwriter that came in. I mean, at one point, Harlan Ellison was brought in. Now, Harlan Ellison is a very well-respected screenwriter. He wrote episodes of Star Trek. He was really well-known in science fiction. And he wasn't sure what to make of it. That's the story that I've got, and he passed on the project. But the way it was told to me was Claire was outraged, that other writers would be brought in.
Do you know anything about writer Dan O'Bannon, the creator of Alien, his participation in the project?
No, that's one I've heard his name attached before, but nobody has ever come back and give me any sort of insight into that or any details about it. So I don't even know if it really happened.
Well, one funny thing is that I interviewed Brian Yuzna about his collaboration with Dan O'Bannon back in 1987. That is about 5 years after the tourist hysteria in the early part of the 1980s. So that must have faded into oblivion. And the script was called The Men. It's about a woman who discovers that all men are aliens. I don't know, but I immediately thought about the tourist and asked Brian about it. He didn't know about it. But I guess Dan O'Bannon might know about it. Maybe he was inspired by the tourist when he wrote the script for The Men.
It's an interesting thing with the original screenplay. In a lot of people, not only did they know about it at the time, but people were kind of active to get involved. A lot of artists, for example, started sending their work in, saying, can I be considered? I'd love to be involved in this project. This is the type of aliens I'm designing. And people were really keen to get on the project, and it was one of the people that got in touch with me is a chap called Robert Morello, and he is famous for he did covers for Heavy Metal magazine, like the science fiction magazine, and he got in touch with me. He said, "Oh yeah, I did some work on that," and he'd lost most of it, but he still had some things. He sent me these photographs of some production notes and things he'd done with Brian Gibson. And just in the last week, he has a Google alert, for his own name, and it came up, and it was all of his original drawings and sketches for the tourist had turned up on eBay, and the person who had them, who was selling them, didn't know what they were. So he actually bought back his own sketches really cheap. He's just shared a few of them with me, and they're stunning, absolutely stunning. So these are like 30-year-old sketches that turned up on eBay, and he was able to buy them back.
Jag brukar ha för vana, om möjligheten finns, att ha med en ljudupptagning, en röstupptagning av personen i fråga som det avsnittet handlar om. Lee hade ju berättat att han hade bandat flera telefonsamtal med Clair, och jag frågade Lee om han kunde skicka någonting till mig. Lee var väldigt snabb med att påpeka att då fick han titta igenom riktigt noga, så att det inte var någon bit där Clair sa något olämpligt som skulle kunna genera henne längre fram, eller som hon skulle bli sur för att han hade delat. Och min fråga till Lee var då om han kunde hitta någonting där Clair pratar om Giger eller Ridley Scott eller någon av de andra personerna som hon jobbade med. Och då letade Lee fram ett klipp där Clair berättar om inspirationen bakom The Tourist.
Try and understand what was actually happening in New York at that time.
That material was post that period. The period of New York that I was dealing with was the period of the Anvil. When I would ride home in the taxi cabs down Hudson Street at 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what the Anvil was?
I don't.
The Anvil was the gay S&M club that was kind of the beginning of the whole cruising, the motorcycle jackets, the fist fucking, the really extreme, violent sex, and the taxi would drift by at night, and the streets would be dark, and then suddenly you would see these, a smeary kind of light, and there would be these guys all dressed the same way in the motorcycle jackets and the leather pants and the hats, but all covered in blood and all drugged out and lying all over the pavements and all, really, really messed up. And it was, it was a sight like, people used to say it's out of Fellini, and I in my mind it was like Fellini doesn't even touch this. It was so it was so otherworldly, and there were other parts of New York at that time that at night were really, really extreme and frightening.
Precis i samband med att jag fick den här ljudfilen av Lee så hittade jag på nätet en gammal tv-dokumentär om The Tourist-projektet. Och i den får vi höra H.R. Giger och regissören Brian Gibson prata lite om projektet och Gigers inblandning i projektet.
I got instruction how the creature should look like. It's like sending people to Siberia if they have done some crime or something. So these aliens had been sent to New York City.
We sat around for like 2 or 3 days and talked about the script and talked about the various possibilities, and then he would do little fine sketches with the strange German accent. Brian, I think we'd put lots of slime on here, and this tentacle here will be like a penis.
A penis always needs teeth, otherwise he wouldn't be shown in the American cinema.
He'd sort of wonderfully enthusiastic in this bizarre way.
Clair Noto berättar.
The sexual nature of his drawings and her sexual nature. In the script she says, I come from a planet of information and erotica, and I wanted the manifestation of her to be extremely erotic.
3 weeks later, or a month later, they delivered these extraordinary drawings, these extraordinary paintings and airbrush designs. It was great.
Normally, the film people, they does not get such big paintings, and so they have been very impressed. And then came out this E.T. and made everything bum.
Det H.R. Giger och regissören Brian Gibson menar är att det var E.T. som kom ut som förstörde hela The Tourist-projektet. Att folk inte ville se en mörk och erotisk science fiction-film utan en varmhjärtad familjefilm istället.
Actually, there's another part of the story that you might not know. When the production's fallen apart and it's all stopped, Claire is then off the project, it's all stopped, it's all finished. And there was this really unusual clause in her contract where the rights reverted to her for the next 7 years. After 7 years. And what this was about was, back at the time, there was a legal battle going on between the Writers Guild and the Producers Guild about giving screenwriters residual royalties when things went to VHS. So when things went to the home video market, are the screenwriters going to earn money for that? So there was this battle. And until they got the contracts ironed out, they were making contracts on an ad hoc way. And Claire's Tourist script was not a standard Hollywood contract. So it was kind of unusual because it was done at this time. So what happens when the project falls apart is the rights to it revert to her. And then she had, I think it was 7 years to try and put a deal together. And she took it off to American Zoetrope, which it was there for a while, and then Zoetrope collapsed as well. Then in the early 90s, Lawrence Gordon, now this is Claire's story, so I'm not entirely sure how much of this is true. Claire gets a phone call from Universal, and they say, we're looking at The Tourist again. Lawrence Gordon, he's just had this huge hit with Predator, and he's looking for another science fiction, and he's interested in The Tourist. Would you like to come back in and do another draft of the script for us? And Claire goes off to meet them, and they say, we've got this young actress, she's called Angelina Jolie, she'll be perfect for the lead. And Claire thinks everything's going great, everything's fine. She does one version of the script and never hears from them again. Now, what I have pieced together afterwards along the way is that the rights were completely broken up. And the rights to, for example, Universal owned the film rights only, but they didn't own the copyright of the screenplay. Or they owned the rights to make a film, but they didn't own the rights to advertise. It was kind of a really stupid thing. And I suspect that when they brought Clair in to do this new draft, I think they did that to consolidate all of the rights, to kind of bring everything back together. So she signed a new contract, and that's brought all of the rights back together. But then Clair never heard anything else.
So, how did you come to write the novelization of the script?
Just a few years ago, I'm browsing online and I see this animation of Mexican wrestlers fighting Giga's tourist images, Giga's tourist aliens. And I looked a little deeper and found it was an animator who worked for Mexican TV. He did the animations for the luchadors when they entered the arena. And we got chatting online. He loved the tourist script. I loved the tourist scripts. He wanted to draw pictures. And I said, look, let's do it. I'll write the book as though the film was made. And you design the cover. And we did it for fun. We put it out online. I printed 85 paperbacks and give them away to friends. And it suddenly started to really pick up with... I sent it to people at Universal Pictures and they really liked it, and suddenly it was spreading and it was kind of going, I wouldn't say going viral, but in that underground fascination that people have for the film, people loved it and they really wanted to read the book.
But things took an unexpected turn when you sent the book to Clair Noto herself.
I've written this book, it's been downloaded, and I sent it off to all the creatives involved in the film that I could find, so I got into conversations with people like Rennie Marcel and people like Robert Morello. And people at Universal are really cool. They're like, oh my God, I remember this project. Yeah, it's really nice. You know, they're happy. They've got this paperback book. And I'd sent it off to Clair. I'd found 2 addresses for her. I'd sent it to both of them. And she received both of them. And then she sends this postcard. Not an email, a postcard. And it just says, call me. Here's my number. And I call her up and... she says, well, actually, I own the book rights. Universal own the rights to a film, but I own the book rights. And you've just made a book, and you've infringed on my rights. And at first I was like, oh, my God, I didn't realize. But look, it's fan fiction. It's on the internet. It's out for free. It was just for fun. And she was like, well, what's fan fiction? What's the internet? And I'm saying, well, look, the tourist of the script's on the internet. She couldn't believe it. It's like, what, it's on the internet? She didn't know what Google was. It was a very unusual conversation where you're speaking to somebody who really didn't understand what I'd done. She thought I'd kind of commercially exploited her work, didn't realize that we'd done it for free. We put it out for fun. And about 10 months later, I get this cease and desist letter from the Writers Guild of America. Clair had gone and petitioned them and she'd complained to them. So they said, look, take it down, but as you know, agree to do these things and not share it, not distribute it. But you have to put out a statement or a video or something to say that you were wrong, that you infringed her copyright. So I made this video and put it on YouTube. And then I put it on a few blog posts, and suddenly the downloads of the book went crazy because this book was banned. I think it got 14,000 downloads in the next 2 weeks.
Jag hade hört flera historier om hur svår Clair var att jobba med. Svängande humör och märkliga infall. Historier som jag lovat att inte berätta, och Liv var i exakt samma sits. Han hade spelat in flera telefonsamtal med Clair som han inte kunde släppa ifrån sig just på grund av att hennes uttalanden var så extrema.
It's actually a long time since I've spoken to Clair. It's it's quite a few years ago now to try and remember those phone calls. I mean, I did record one of them. And yeah, she's interesting. That's what I came. In fact, almost when we finished the conversation, I was just looking at my wife, and we just kind of looked at each other and said, "What the hell was that?"
Detta blir lite grann av kärnan i problemet med det här avsnittet. Vanligtvis så brukar folk vara ganska glada att prata när det kommer till så här katastroffilminspelningar och dela anekdoter. Men inte så i detta fallet. Jag är en sån person som gärna vill behålla bilden, den romantiska bilden av geniet med de originella idéerna. Frågan var, hade Clair skrivit något annat manus som var lika intressant och spännande som The Tourist? Svårt att säga, ingen kunde riktigt svara på den frågan, möjligtvis Clair själv, men henne hade ju inte fått tag på. Om man kollar på IMDb så ser man att Clair står krediterad som författare till 2 stycken tv-serieavsnitt. Det är det enda hon står krediterad som, varav det ena av de 2 är en tecknad barnfilm från 80-talet, Gem, om ett rockband. Jag vet inte om det är rättvist att dra någon slutsats av det här, men man kan alltid hoppas att det finns någonting mer. Clair själv är förståeligt nog riktigt bitter än idag över hela händelsen med The Tourist.
I think she felt very bitter. She came close to what she'd always wanted, to have a Hollywood hit. And she got so close to it. She was really touching distance. And she just came away hating the whole experience, you know, which is quite understandable. And I think that even though 30 years has gone past, there's still some bitterness there.
Nu verkar det tyvärr som att tiden hade gått ifrån hela The Tourist-manuset, och som Lee slutligen påpekade.
One of the things that happened with The Tourist, and I think the reason it wouldn't be made now, is it's been picked clean. So the simple ideas that were at the heart of it, this idea of aliens living in New York, well, that's like Men in Black. If you look at something like The Arrival, if you remember The Arrival with Charlie Sheen, very much from that. Species is very much from that. All of those ideas, they were Clair's. Clair kind of came up with everything. It's like how you often see movies that were made before Blade Runner and after Blade Runner. Okay, Blade Runner kind of set science fiction up for the next 30 years. And The Tourist did as well, but the film was never made. But so many ideas that you see in films, you say, oh, yeah, whoever made this movie, they've read the script. They know it. They know the Giga images. That it's kind of post-Tourist, which I think that makes it really special that it's managed to have such an influence even when it was never made.
Ja, det var allt för den här gången. Mitt namn är Henrik Möller. Musiken är skapad av Testbild. Hej då.